Okay, so today we're going to look at equations. We're going to start with some simple one-step ones. So if you look at number 1, x plus 5 equals 10. The whole goal when you're trying to solve an equation is you have to make sure that your equation stays balanced. So if you do something to one side of the equal sign, you have to do the same thing to the other side of the equal sign. So if you look at number 1, our goal is to get x all by itself. And you should see that this 5 is on the same side as the x. So we need to move it over. If you move something from one side of the equal sign to the other side of the equal sign, you have to do the opposite operation. So since that's a positive 5 on the left side, we're going to subtract 5 from both sides of the equal sign. And the whole reason in doing this is because we're trying to get this positive 5 to go away. 5 minus 5 is going to give us 0, which means these are going to cancel out, and you're only going to be left with x on the left-hand side, and then 10 minus 5 is 5. And now x is all by itself, so we know we're finished. And you can always check to make sure your answer is correct. So if you plug in 5, where our x is, 5 plus 5 is 10. Okay, so we solved that one correctly. Alright, so number 2, we have x minus 6 equals 3. So we need to get the negative 6 to the other side. So in order to do that, we're going to add 6 to both sides. The whole reason in doing that is because a negative 6 plus 6 is going to give us 0. So they're going to cancel, so we'll be left with only x on the left side, and 3 plus 6 is 9. To check your answer, you can plug in 9 where your x was. 9 minus 6 is in fact 3. Okay, so for number 3, you should notice that we need to get rid of this 4. Okay, we need to move it to the other side of the equal sign. And remember, if you're moving something to the other side of the equal sign, you have to do the opposite operation. So between the 4 and the x, this is multiplying. 4 times x. So if I want to get this 4 to go away, I'm going to have to divide by 4. Okay, and the reason why it cancels out is because 4 divided by 4 is 1. So we're left with 1x, or you can just say x. If you put the 1 there, that's perfectly fine. And then 12 divided by 4 is 3. Always make sure you check your answer. 4 times 3 is 12. Alright, number 4. Be careful with this one, because some people will look at this and say, well, the x is all by itself. But it's not. It has a negative with it. Okay? In other words, it has a negative 1. So if you want to get rid of that negative sign, you can divide by a negative 1. Because a negative divided by a negative is going to give you a positive. So those negative signs are going to cancel. So you're left with a positive x equals, and then a 13 divided by a negative 1 is going to be a negative 13. Because a positive divided by a negative is going to be a negative. Anytime you're dividing different signs, you're going to end up with a negative. Alright, so let's look at one with a fraction, because a lot of people don't like fractions. If you want to make a fraction go away, you can make a fraction go away every single time by multiplying by its denominator. So in this case, our denominator is 4. So we're going to multiply both sides by 4. Because remember, if you do something to one side, you have to do that same thing to the other side. Okay? The reason why we do that is because 4 divided by 4 is going to cancel out on this side. So these 4's are going to cancel. And we're just going to be left with 3x on the left-hand side. Equals 24 times 4 is 96. See how our fraction went away? So if you multiply a fraction by its denominator, you're going to be left with the numerator, which in this case was 3x. Now, we can divide by 3 on both sides to get x all by itself, and 96 divided by 3 is 32. You can check your answer. 3/4 times 32 is 24. Okay, so let's look at a little bit more complicated of an equation. So this is a multi-step equation. When you're dealing with a multi-step equation, the easiest thing to do first is to make sure you combine like terms that are on the same side of the equal sign. So let's look at the left-hand side first. On the left-hand side, we have 1p and we have a -1. These aren't like terms, so there is nothing we can simplify on the left-hand side. So we're just going to bring it down for right now. On the right-hand side, we do have some like terms. 5p and 3p are like terms, so we can combine those. 5 plus 3 is going to give us 8. So we're going to have 8p and then bring down that -8. So now we don't have any more like terms on the left, and we don't have any more like terms on the right. So now we're going to have to start moving things over to the other side of the equal sign. And you have some options here. There's not one way that you can move things over. So if you decided to move things over in a different order than me, that's fine. You should still end up with the same answer as long as you make sure to do the opposite operation when moving across the equal sign. So first, I'm going to decide to add the 1. The reason why I do this is because I want to move this 1 and combine it with this -8. A -1 plus 1 is going to cancel. So I'm going to be left with p equals 8p, and then -8 plus 1 is -7. So now I notice that I have 1p and I have 8p. These are like terms, but they're on different sides of the equal signs. But I still need to combine them. I don't want to move this 1p over because it's all alone on the left-hand side. Moving this 8p over, since it's not alone, it still has this -7 over here. I can move this 8p by subtracting 8p from both sides. So 8p minus 8p will cancel on the right-hand side. There's an understood 1 here, so 1 minus 8 will be a -7p equals -7. Now p is still not all alone. I need to get rid of this -7. So I'm going to divide each side by -7 since the operation between the -7 and the p here is multiplication, and I need to do the opposite. And the opposite of multiplication is division. So now -7 and -7 are going to cancel, and I'm left with p equals -7 divided by -7, which is 1. And you can always plug in your answer to check. Alright, the last type of equation we're going to look at is a multi-step equation that includes parentheses. So we're going to have to deal with the distributive property for this. So the first thing I'm going to do is distribute this -4 to each term in the parentheses. So the first thing I'm going to multiply is the -4 times the -6x, which is going to give me a positive 24x. Now, since this -3 is also in the parentheses, I need to multiply that by -4 as well. Be careful with your signs here. A negative times a negative is going to end up giving us a positive. So a -4 times a -3 is going to give us a positive 12. Now, since we didn't do anything to the left side of the equation, I'm just going to bring this 12 down. Okay, so now our equation looks a lot easier. We just need to combine like terms. So I don't have any like terms that are on the same side. So I'm going to need to start moving things over to the opposite side. Now I notice that this 12 and this 12 are like terms. Since they're on opposite sides of the equal sign, I'm going to do the opposite operation. Now I don't want to move this 12 over because it's all alone. There's nothing else on the left side of the equal sign. So I'm going to move this 12 over. And since it's a positive 12, I'm going to subtract 12. So 12 minus 12 gives us 0. These 12s have already canceled out. And I'm going to bring down the 24x. Now x is still not all by itself, it's still got this 24 with it. And this is multiplication going on here. So in order to get rid of the 24, I'm going to divide by 24. And 0 divided by 24 is 0. These cancel out, so 0 equals x. So 0 is my answer, and you can check it.